if you just think about it, like the context is there's more capital in the environment than ever before. It's getting more and more competitive amongst VC firms. Ownership, the valuations are going up, right? So the same dollar that goes into a company doesn't result in the same ownership as it used to. What is that conversation like with VC leads? Maybe not specifically, but like, what do you think, you need to be thinking about as a founder when having those conversations?
I can start. One of the things that we've always done as a part of our fundraising process is always run a due diligence on the investor and their firm as well. We have a no assholes rule, but I think a part of that is, this is a marriage, right? It's a marriage that you can't get a divorce from. And so we have a tendency to ask all of our investors to get drinks, to go to dinner with us, not just so that we can, network, but really so we can understand what motivates each of our investors. We do the same sort of process that we do with every single Phoenician that we interview. And I always ask them, what motivates you? What makes you tick? And I think through that process, it's really about how do you make sure that you have a shared sense of values. For us, that conversation wasn't as tough as it seemed. I think it felt a little scarier kind of going into it, just to kind of say, hey, this is something we're going to do that's bold and it hasn't necessarily been done before, but we think it's the right thing to do. And I feel very lucky and blessed that, a lot of all of our investors were incredibly supportive, from Homebrew to Bain, to Lightspeed and others, and who also wanted to see how they could get their firms involved as well, and maybe introduce us to other parts of their portfolio. I think, especially as Derek was mentioning, in the time of George Floyd and the Black Lives Matter movement, a lot of VC firms were tweeting, Black Lives Matter, but you look at their team page, I think it kind of contradicted what they were saying out there. And I think this was really an opportunity for others to look internally and be introspective and retrospective and think about how they wanted to, change going forward. And so I think a big part of that was not just investing in founders of color, but opening up deal flow to others as well. And so I encourage everybody, all the founders I think that I speak to, there's always a little bit of a hesitancy to kind of have these conversations. But I think to what you're saying as well, Joe, is that we are in an unprecedented time where founders have a lot more power and a lot more influence because there is a lot of capital, and a lot of that capital is green, right? And I think there's an overhype of, what kind of value add some of these investors can provide. And so I would rather align myself with those who share those values, who share that vision of the world. And when decisions like these come up, listen and have are open-minded about how we can, change not just the world of fintech, but also the world of financial services and venture capital along the way as well.
Derek, what are your thoughts?
I mean, Richie said it well, which was that, and just to reiterate this point, is that this is one of the rare times where both the right thing to do and the best business thing to do are the same thing. So, I think, as I have become more educated on this subject, I think we came from a place where we were doing it for the quote unquote right reasons, but that at the end of the day doesn't, pay the bills. And I think I was educated by many of my Black friends to the fact that this is actually going to make your company more valuable. And this is as you include more people, as you, as you extend your network, as both for hiring and for investor base. I mean, from what we did, there have been so many positive outcomes and things that have come from this thing that we did. And with all the people, we had one of our investors, who, put in $5,000 or $10,000 into this $40 million round, who then bought our product for $60,000. I mean, and I don't even know if she really needed to use it. I think she's just maybe being supportive of it. I don't know. She is using it, but there are just so many things that just it opened up, someone running this, anyways, I can go into all sorts of examples of how it's benefited the business. But, whatever, ultimately, like, hopefully you're working with good people. I mean, Richie's working with some of the best investors in the world. We have good investors as well. So I think generally, like, all good people, like, they want to do the right thing. It may not feel that way all the time, but I think when you present it as like, hey, look, this is why I'm doing this and this is why it's good, like, they're going to get behind it. But you kind of got to be sometimes sort of, very forceful in saying like, hey, like, we're going to do this with or without you. And most people I found have been very supportive of saying, like, of course, I want to be part of this. Like, it's a good thing to be part of, and good people are, part of it. Ryan Smith, who's on our board, they just made Dwayne Wade a minority owner of the Utah Jazz, and brought him in on that. And like, it's good for, like, it's the right thing to do for the league. And it's also like good for their business, like, and so I don't know, it's not, this is where, like, I guess over the last 6 or 8 or 12 months, like, just more and more understand that, like, it's actually, you're kind of crazy not to be inclusive in this way, I think. And I believe more and more people are seeing that or understanding that. It's sort of obvious.
And I just want to add that, like, one thing that I realized after helping with several of these subsequent deals through the Cap Table Coalition is that this larger group of investors who happen to be Black, who happen to be Latino, also are not just check writers. We are deeply experienced technologists, engineers, heads of finance, operators, founders. Like, we bring all the things that founders say that they want, right? That expertise. And not to say that we start emailing Derek or Richie like whenever we want to, but like the thing that I have like said over and over is that I want to help a founder. I don't want to just write you a check, but I also want to help you grow. And I believe that there is something that I bring to the table outside of my check. And I want people to recognize that Black people and Latinx people have that as well, right? And so it's the right thing to do, as Derek and Richie have said, it's the right thing to do. And it's the right thing to admit that you don't have a diverse network of friends, that you don't have a diverse network of people you can tap into. But by doing this, that changes the narrative. That it really does change the narrative. And I know when people come to me, they are looking for someone to hire, or they're looking for a connection. They're not saying, well, Qiana only knows Black people or only knows Latinx people. They know that I have a wide and diverse network of people, and the likelihood that I'm going to send them someone who is underestimated is a high chance. But I'm also going to recommend someone to them that also has all the expertise that they were looking for. So I think that's the part that is really super important, that we're not just on these cap tables just because we're Black or just because we're Latino. We are on the cap table because we are, accredited investors who otherwise would not have gotten access to this opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, just to double tap on that, like Peggy Alford's on the board at Facebook. Like Omar Johnson was the CMO at Beats, like one of the best marketers of our generation. You've got, James Lowry, who wrote this book, Change Agent, sits on my desk. I highly recommend this, like what he has written about. He's like this pioneer in civil rights, the business side of civil rights movement. It's like even hearing that, Qiana, like hearing that people think that way, like I just kind of like, but I like honestly, like I probably thought that way at some point. So I think like seeing, like it's like I'm embarrassed about it, but like. I think just like now seeing it and having been part of these people coming into my life and into my business and seeing the immediate impact that they had has been incredible, more valuable, more like than any investors that I have had, even somebody writing like a $5,000 check, like having this huge impact on my business over somebody that, wrote me a much larger check. It's been really remarkable to see that.
It's actually related to a follow-on point or a question I was going to ask, which is, for Richie and Derek, You guys talked about your intentions or kind of your thesis around when you started this down this path. But what have been some of the unexpected benefits or surprises along the way as after you decided to go down that path?
For me, I think it's a lot of the similar things that Derek and Qiana were sharing in terms of the value add that people were bringing. So we ended up committing 10% of our Series B extension, along with all future rounds, 10% of all future rounds as well, to investors of color. I think we probably were actually pretty close to that prior to even formalizing this structure, just based on friends who I knew and making sure that we could make room for funds like Act One, who were some of the first people to believe in Finix. Precursor venture from Charles Hudson is also an investor. The very first person I ever pitched was Charles Hudson. And I went in there so nervous, and he gave me that confidence to be able to go into future pitches as well. So I think, having that sense of confidence was a big deal. But we, as a part of those 80 people who invested, we've hired people, we've had candidate leads, we've had new deal flow, we've had new network opportunities. It's just incredible. And so we ended up calling the SPV that we formed the Finix Village. And it's one of the things that we talk about a lot from my background. It took a village for me to get to where I'm at today. It took a village to get Finix where it's at. And it will continue to take that, not just from the employee base, but also from our investors. So it's something that keeps giving back, which is super exciting. And I think there's a sense of camaraderie and a bond amongst the people who are part of this cap table. They're doing deals outside of Finix, which is incredibly exciting. They're sharing deal flow. So it's starting to become a very vibrant community.
Yeah, I was just jotting down a few things. I mean, look, we got to go tell our story on CNBC. That was directly related to the investors making introduction and sort of the movement of what we were doing. But we've hired 30 Black team members, many of which found us through the announcement or through friends that that saw the announcement. We just signed our first customer in Africa, which also came through a lead through one of our investors. This company in Africa building this, like, one of the biggest developer ecosystems there, is 200-person company there. I also got to talk to Michael Johnson a few times, which I just have to say was personally a major highlight for me. But I don't know that anybody got a lot of benefit out of that except for me. But yeah, lots of those are the big things, and then dozens and dozens of small things.
So just on that note, this started off as kind of an ad hoc type of, hey, let's try this, and now it's become more formalized in the Cap Table Coalition. Qiana, can you describe a little bit about how the Cap Table Coalition works, like on the back end?
Yeah.
Yeah,
totally. So we have this wonderful website, and so many people sort of found out about what we were doing, obviously, because of Finix, and started reaching out directly to Richie and others, especially founders, and saying, like, how did you do this? Like, what can I do? What should I do? And so rather than doing it in an ad hoc sort of manner and taking up all Richie's time, we are very thankful that, he was able to put a structure and use some time and resources from the Finix team to put a structure around this. What would it look like if founders were interested in that? Could we have basically a template for them? Here's what we can do for you. Here's how you would do it. Here's how you would, position with your lead investors, et cetera. So essentially just sort of putting that into a template, and then bringing our coalition, our much broader coalition of investors, people who have previously invested in deals or who have said, hey, I want access to deal flow. So we have them in a huge, listserv. And so when deals come through, our investment committee, which I'm a member of, we look at the deal, we do the analysis of it, And then if it sort of goes through that analysis period and we like the deal, then we push it out to our much broader community of people who are part of the coalition. And then typically what we do is like we host a webinar, we bring a founder like Derek or Richie so that they can tell us more about the company and where they're at, really get people energized around investing in this particular founder and their mission and what they're trying to accomplish. And then a person like me operates as the GP and basically herds cats, gets everyone. And we work with fun administrative platforms to be able to run the deal seamlessly. And so we just we have a structure in place that can do that and replicate that over and over and over again.
And this is pretty interesting. I don't know if everyone saw in the comments. Someone is, Ethan is saying they are raising a Series B and they're interested in allocating to investors of color. And so how should Ethan go forward in making something like this happen for his company?
So I think I probably have a way to get a hold of Ethan because I've been following this Gigwage, the company. But Ethan, if you're listening, just sign up on the Cap Table Coalition and we'll reach out to you directly and sort of take you through that process. So we're glad to have more people joining us in this endeavor. He's fundraising. But yeah, so when you're ready, Ethan. Yeah, when you're ready, Ethan, like sign up so that you have everything in place. And when you're ready to go, then we will work with you.
And in general, should they go to the website? Should they contact you?
They can go directly to the Cap Table Coalition. There's a section for if you're a founder and you want to, learn more about the Cap Table Coalition, or if you want to be an investor. So there's essentially 2 buttons. So you choose which one you are, and then we will reach out to you.
Right. And Qiana, can you talk a little bit more about your experience, like being an operator? You have your own firm. Now you're changing. Like, how is this whole kind of ecosystem evolved to develop your career as an investor? Can you comment on that?
Yeah, that's a great question. I had been, for years, I've been helping founders, whether it was through being a Techstars mentor or, being the chair of Pledge LA, which is an initiative between the city of LA and the VC and tech community in Los Angeles. I was really thinking about how do I pour into founders, and oftentimes founders of color reaching out to someone like me, and I just offer up my time. That was essentially taking up a lot of time. So I was having all these conversations with founders as they were raising capital. I have a deep network of friends who are investors, whether they lead their own funds or they're in private equity. And so just sort of being that glue, this person who, as Richie was saying earlier, has this network that's really crazy big. Just finding I had a lot to say about growth and how you should raise. And because I had previously been in 2 companies that were not VC backed, we were totally bootstrapped, which is an amazing ride to be on, and getting it to double-digit millions in revenue is super awesome. All bootstrap. I had a lot to say and a lot of experience around what does it take to build a company with no VC dollars. It wasn't that we didn't get money offered to us. We just said, we're going to go at this and we're going to try and grow as much and as quickly as we possibly can without giving up any of the company. And so, I just had a lot to say because I was spending so much time either mentoring, coaching, advising. Then it made lots of people said, you should raise your own fund. So many people have said, you need to raise your own fund. And I was like, I don't think that people are just going to write me checks. LPs are just not going to write me a check, right? I didn't go to Stanford. I didn't go to Harvard. I don't have an exit under my belt, right? All of sort of those pattern matching that we know exists. And so rather than ignore that, I wanted to find a way, if that is the pattern, how do I sort of bust that pattern? What are the things that I can do? a Black Venture Institute, be a VC scout, connect and find really good companies and connect them to potential investors. And I'm happy to say that a lot of those connections did result in investments, did result in leads. And so I know that I have like the ability to like spot really great companies from the perspective of being an operator and growth. So what would it take for me to do that? And so that's sort of the arc of like how I've gotten to where I am now, right? There's still tons for me to learn, but I think that there's an opportunity for people like me who have that skill set, but I just don't fit the pattern, right? And so what do we do if I don't fit the pattern? Then people like me, I just find a way around it. I'm a first generation college student. Statistically, I shouldn't be on this Zoom with you. My mother didn't graduate from high school. She had 2 kids by the time she was 19 years old. So like I've been determined my entire life to get where I'm at. But I've had no guide. I've had no one that looked like me help me in this journey, right? I've had to figure it out, and becoming friends with Emmanuel and finding people like Richie and really understanding their business is super important. Befriending people like you, Joe, is super important for my journey. And I just want to be able to back more founders and back more ambitious founders, which is why I named, my fund, my emerging fund, Cota Capital. Tamaa means ambition in Swahili. And I think that's a seed that's been planted in me at birth. And so I just want to continue watering that and fertilizing it so it can grow.
And are you able to publicly announce where you're headed, or is that still in stealth right now?
Yeah, it's still, unfortunately, I cannot announce it. There will be an announcement at the end of September. So in the fall, it will come out. But yes, I am not right now able to mention the name or the people, but I'm really super excited to be able to back really amazing founders like Richie and Derek and so many others who are just in the grind, doing some amazing and building some really powerful products that I'm excited about.
Well, I mean, no one here is going to talk about it. We just want to know. We just need to know.
Just between us,
but you have everyone's promise that no one will talk about, but we've got to know.
We've got like 100 people here, so there's a lot of people that could.
They're all in on it. They're all committed to the promise.
Yeah. Yes.
We'll keep everyone in suspense, and we'll be excited to hear
future chat.
Let me ask you this, Richie. You talked about how in these days founders have more power than they think, and you guys are great examples of that. Especially where you are as companies. Curious as to your thoughts. Like I'm just thinking of the founders out there who are maybe like earlier in their company's maturity. They're maybe they're raising their first seed round or whatnot. Is this something that they can be thinking about, or is this something that it needs to come further, like later in their experience? Like I don't know if the seed versus the later stage rounds things are different. How would you advise an early stage founder on this journey?
I mean, I think thinking about diversity starts from day one, right? Otherwise, you're fighting an uphill battle. And so we've always been very diligent and disciplined and thoughtful about who we bring into the cap table as well. We mentioned Act One, and so they actually gave us our first term sheet at the seed round. And we ended up going with another lead investor, and we still made room for them. And it was really important for me, and I had a deep connection with Alejandro in his story. His attempts to break into the VC firm industry, and wanted to extend that back to him and to others who were trying to break in. I knew how I think I've shared this story before. Probably pitched 70 or 80 people before Alejandro gave me that yes, and so I didn't want to forget the people who did give me these opportunities, and giving back to people right away was a way that I could start to have an impact. And I saw somewhere in the chats that someone asked, like, is this only for founders of color to do this? No, we want founders of every shade, every type, to every stage to start thinking about this. And as soon as we announced it, and before we created the Cap Table Coalition, a few of my founder friends who were white reached out and said, hey, is this okay for us to do this? We're like, yes, absolutely. That's the point. if other white founders don't open up their cap tables, it's really going to be hard for us to have that level of success that we're looking for, right? And so I think one of the things that we've internally set as a goal as a part of the cap table coalition is how can we get to the first 100 companies as fast as possible? Because if 5-10% of those companies end up being unicorns, decacorns, that's a fundamental redistribution of wealth that Silicon Valley hasn't seen in a big way. And I think a number of people who are probably part of this webinar have seen that one check can make an entire career. One check can make an entire firm. There are a number of firms who got started off just with one small investment that they got in, and that's how they built the rest of their reputation, the rest of their track record, and the next 2 or 3 funds. And so that's really what our goal is. And to what you said at the beginning of the hour was, if we start having more capital in the hands of diverse investors, then we can, hopefully fund more diverse founders as well. So there is a cyclical component to this as well.
Yeah, I just add that, we expect doctors to go to school for 8 years. We expect lawyers to go to school for 7 years. I think we as entrepreneurs and, even people that are starting out as investors, I mean, you're having to be entrepreneurial, like it's just the human nature to like want things now. Right. And so, but you have to expect that it's going to take time. And, I've met thousands of founders through Startup Grind over the years at meetups and other things. And I have like people just churn themselves through doing something so fast. And whenever like I talk about the success that I've had, or whatever success that is, like it's mostly just because I have survived longer than anyone that I have competed against. And I could give you a dozen examples of companies that were better positioned, that were before us, that had a better mousetrap than us, but like we just, no one's going to outlast us. And it's a really long race. It's a multi-decade long race, at least for me. And so I'm I quit my job to become an entrepreneur in 2009. So I feel like it was last year. It also feels like it was 100 years ago. But like I'm here, and I don't know like where the finish line is or what even the finish line is. But I just know that like I'm going to be at this at least another decade or two. So I don't need to be successful today or next month or this year. I don't need it to all work perfectly, because I know I'm going to be here for a really long time. And you just have to expect like, Giannis is 26. I mean, he's in it like, and he's considered really young to be where he's at. Like I was listening to that right before I was listening to some podcast. So that's why it's on my mind. But like, it just takes time. And, to become known in an industry, to make a dent, like you gotta put in the reps. And so don't be frustrated if it doesn't come in the first year or the first 6 months. And don't put yourself in a situation with your family where like your partner is saying like you've painted us into a corner. Like you got to go get a job. You can't do this anymore. I mean, that's also part of your responsibility to making this happen. You got to take care of the people around you and make sure that you've created an environment that they're going to be able to thrive and survive in. I have 4 little kids. I quit my job 6 weeks after my first son was born. He's 12. Like, I don't know that I would advise other people to do that. My dad didn't really think that was a great idea, but like, that's what worked for my wife and I. And, we're sort of in this together. And, hopefully I got at least another 12 more years in me. And that's what, at least for me, like, I think sadly, like to Qiana's point, like I'm not Mark Zuckerberg either. And so like, I'm not just going to be super successful in the first idea. Most people aren't. And so just consider you'll probably be like most people if you're going to be successful. It's going to take 8 to 10 years to get there.
Excellent. There was one other question in the chat, which is, would love to get involved more in these communities. What communities or networks have you all found to be useful in technology in Silicon Valley? I mean, I would speak very highly of Black VC as one way to get involved. How about you all? What's worked for you?
I would just say, like, obviously the Cap Table Coalition, I think we're at a place that is just building and growing. So I think that whether you're a founder or you are a potential investor, you should, join us. But I also, like you said, there's Black VC, there's Latinx VC, there's VC Familia, there's Diverse Angels. There's just so many groups that you can be a part of. Their stealth mode in the Bay Area, now in LA. There's just a lot of different groups, and I think that network of people is just continuing to grow. So I'll put my email in. I'm happy to connect people as it makes sense, especially if you have a particular interest and I know a group that might make sense for you.
Excellent. If there's no any questions, no other questions, I'd love just each of the panelists to share some parting words or anything else they would like to say. I'm going to pick.
I go first.
Go ahead, Richie.
I can go for it. I think one of the things that I've been sharing with a lot of friends is that if you can start a company, you can start an SPV. And so the idea that this is very difficult, it's hard to do, it's really not that hard. It's really about spreading the word and spreading the awareness of this. And I think one thing that has been really important, and one of the reasons why we've been doing this, there was an article that I read back in 2015. If you guys haven't had a chance to read it, please check this out. It's an article that the New Yorker wrote about Mark Andreessen and Ben Horowitz and how they created A16Z. And I found that the title of it's called Tomorrow's Advanced Man. But they basically talk about how Andreessen Horowitz was created almost as an influencer-based asset class. And this idea was really founded after Mark Andreessen had a conversation with one of the top investment bankers in the tech space. And so he shared this idea that, quote, deal flow is everything. If you're a second tier firm, you never get a chance at that great company, end quote. And then the investment banker went on to share that of all of the software companies that typically go public in a year, it's usually concentrated in these top 10 VC firms, right? They get most of the allocation of those hot deals. And so this banker puts 90% of his effort into seeking out the deals from the top 8 venture firms, 10% into the next 12, and 0% into all the rest. And so I think when you really start to let that settle in, this idea that it is influencer based and this idea that it's not really a meritocracy, these funds are concentrated in a small pocket. We have to help each other out in any way that we can to really make a big impact on the industry. And so I think this is one of the reasons why we were so excited about the cap tables. How can we help others get into these types of opportunities? And one thing that Derek was saying about this idea of survival and using some sports analogies really brought me back to this metaphor that we've shared with the team a lot at Finix, which is we want people to think like rugby players as opposed to NFL players and football players. And I don't watch rugby, so I can't say that I'm a huge rugby aficionado or anything like that. But I think the analogy and the metaphor of the sport is incredibly powerful. And that this idea of all these players on the field pushing the ball forward, sacrificing themselves to make as much progress as possible, and then tossing the ball back to the next person and continuing to inch across until you can score. And so, as you were saying, Derek, this may take us years to have a big impact, but I do think that there's a ripple effect if we really can rally together in events like this, like Black VC and other types of networks, to really help ourselves break into an industry that typically we haven't been allowed in, right? These rooms have been closed to us, and this is an effort for us to seize the moment in a big way. So hopefully any of the folks who are out there, if you guys need help thinking about how to do something like this, if you have great portfolio companies, reach out to us. We want to help.
I'll go next, Qiana. You can have the last word. So I would just say, just on the community front, I just signed up as well with the Cap Table Coalition. So I just did that while we were sitting here. You can do that on their website, and that seems like a great thing to be part of. Startup Grind is available to anyone, anywhere. So that's where I got educated on how to run a startup and get access to interesting people in my local area. So would encourage you on that. And then the last thing I would just say in my, whatever parting words I've got is just to be bold. I mean, there's nothing to lose. I mean, don't do anything. You can lose your reputation, and you don't want to do that. But fortune favors the bold, and people that go for it, and people that take risks. And I'm sitting here. I'm just going to share one example of this. I'm impressed by Kareem Howell, who's at this event. He asked for my email in the chat. He already sent me a follow-up email right away, and my EA is already scheduling something to meet with him. The meeting hasn't even ended yet. I'm impressed by his bold follow-up. You don't know who's gonna I don't know, I'm an optimist, but I think generally people are good. Generally people want to help. Not everyone, but one thing that I was really when I was out reaching out to different investors to participate, several of them said just thank you for thinking of me. I don't get included on this stuff. And I just thought man, I know so many people that would want them included if we are more intentional about it as founders, but also if those people had just been bold enough to ask. And so the worst thing they say is no, but they probably won't say no. And so I had somebody after the round closed come to me and say I want to be part of it. And what do? We found a way to get them in. That happened actually with 2 or 3 people. She then introduced me to someone that's a board member at a Fortune 20 company who also got involved. That was her first thing in the 5 minutes meeting. She immediately created value. So but she was bold enough to come ask me, go be bold, go ask for help, and help people create value. People, you just, I don't know. Well, so I'm excited about meeting Kareem. Thank you for being bold, and that's inspiring to me. I need to go be bold with somebody this afternoon. So that's what I'm going to try and get from this.
I'll just say that, on this idea of being bold, I know the title of this this meeting today was, basically how to get underrepresented people on these cap tables or as investing in companies. And what I want to say is that we are underrepresented, but it's because we are underestimated. And so I want us to be bold, whether you're a founder, you're an investor, whether you're somewhere in this ecosystem, to just remember that for so long, people that look like me, that look like Richie and Joe and others have just simply been underestimated, right? On our talent, our skill, what we bring to the table. And it's just not true, right? And we just have to push against that narrative, and we just have to push and be bold. And not everyone is going to say yes, right? But not everyone is going to say no either. And I'm willing to hear. I'm willing to hear 1,000 more no's so that I can get to the yes. And I hope that all of you will do the same as well. And together we can go much further. And so I just invite anyone and everyone to join us on the Cap Table Coalition, and let's continue to be bold together.
We're underrepresented because we're underestimated. That's we can't end on a better note than that. So I just want to thank all the panelists here. Qiana, Derek, Richie, thank you guys so much for sharing your time. Thank you for the values that you're demonstrating as we're all collectively trying to create more equality and in tech and in VC. So appreciate your time. Anyone who has kind of follow-ups, you can reach us. We're putting all our contact information in the chat, and look forward to connecting with you all again soon.